Hey everyone, welcome to another Q&A. This one's going to be a little short and sweet. You guys only gave me 3 questions, but I'm going to spend time going through those. I think they are really interesting questions to chat about today. So let's dive on in. The first question was, what is the difference between sugar alcohols and regular sugar? This is a great question because we talk a lot about sugar substitutes like stevia and like Splenda and all those things that you see traditionally being used in products. And sugar alcohols are kind of out there as this lingering other group that people get confused by, and they don't really show up clearly on a label, so it can be a little confusing. So first things first, sugar alcohols are a different type of carbohydrate than sugar. They're not really sugar, they're not really alcohol, they're just a different type of carbohydrate that has a slightly different structure. And by having that slightly different structure than regular sugar, it doesn't get absorbed as easily. And so it has about a 50% absorption rate compared to regular sugar. So say you were to consume regular sugar, you're getting about half when it comes to a sugar alcohol. So for example, regular sugar is 4 calories per gram, and sugar alcohols are 2 calories per gram. So just think about it as normal sugar cut in half. And yes, that sounds really great. Yay, we're cutting our sugar in half. But of course, we're going to talk about the side effects too. And just be mindful that, things always, if they sound too good to be true, it probably is. We'll get into that. So yes, they're not absorbed as efficiently. And because of that, that's why they're known for digestive issues, bloating, gas, even associated with IBS, associated with having laxative effects, especially in higher doses. So if these sugar alcohols are sneaking into a lot of your products, don't be surprised if you start to have some side effects. And a lot of people say, I have this random bloating that pops up, but if you're not paying attention to the label, you may see these sugar alcohols on there and you had no idea. And so just be really mindful. If you're having really weird, unexplained bloating, maybe it's because of the sugar alcohols. So to identify a sugar alcohol, it's pretty easy. It's anything ending in OL. So a common one is xylitol, erythritol, which you may have heard of, sorbitol, mannitol, lactitol, anything with an OL, sugar alcohol. So super easy to identify. They are putting them on labels more often now. I am seeing them on the nutrition panel. So you'll see like under the carbohydrate section, you'll see a separate line item for sugar alcohol. So I am seeing that now, but sometimes it's not. So you just always need to double check that that ingredient list to to be sure that that's what is in there. And so what are the side effects? Well, the first thing you need to be aware of, it is still going to spike your blood sugar. Yes, it's going to spike it a little bit less. It has a glycemic index of around 40, whereas regular sugar has about 100. So remember, we're just cutting everything in half. And so it is still going to spike your blood sugar. So we don't want to do xylitol, any of these sugar alcohols just by themselves. And typically they're going to be in products. They always are going to be in products. It's a processed sugar. So just be mindful that it is still going to spike blood sugar. We would need to make sure we're balancing with our protein, fat, and fiber. And the other thing to think about is the fact that it has those digestive issues, and there is a upper limit of about 10 grams a day. I don't know off the top of my head what the amount looks like in different products. I'm going to show you one that was mentioned called Alani, and that one only had 2 grams. So it might be hard to get to 10 grams. I'm not really sure, but just be mindful, like 10 is like the threshold that research says we don't want to be going above that. Obviously, that's more of just a safety thing, not a health thing. Ideally, we're doing very minimal amounts, but they sneak this stuff into all kinds of things. And again, it's kind of sexy because it's like, it's still like a real, sugar in a way, and it's different from things like stevia, and it has like half the sugar of regular sugar. So they sneak it into a lot of things, but now you're going to be savvy and you're going to know what a sugar alcohol is. So I'm going to show you I'm trying to share my screen here and show you an example of a product that was mentioned called Alani. I've never tried these, but I have definitely heard of them. They're known for their energy drinks. Pretty snazzy branding here. So let's look at the new, I just want to walk through this with you. Okay, I don't want to add this to my cart. Get away. So nutrition facts, let's look at that. Calories 15. Okay, so we know they're obviously doing something here to create lots of fun flavors like breezeberry. So anytime you see low calories and you see flavors, you're like, hey, where is that coming from? Because it's obviously artificially added here. We're seeing it's pretty low carb, which is not surprising because we know they're using sugar alcohols. But see, you can see on this label, they do note sugar alcohols as 2 grams. So remember we talked about 10, so this isn't terrible. Keep that in mind. And then we see a lot of different vitamins and minerals. We see lots of B vitamins because again, this is an energy drink. So they're going to do anything they can to get you more energy, nutrients that have the most energy. That's your B vitamins. So that all looks fine, you know, it's nothing crazy. But then let's go down here to the ingredient list. So you will see the third ingredient on here is erythritol. So the third ingredient, and remember, ingredient lists go by weight. So the third most common ingredient, well, I would even count as second because the first is water. But so the second most, the highest volume ingredient is erythritol, sugar alcohol. Then we have some proteins. We have these are like preservatives, natural flavor. That's where you're getting these crazy berry, whatever it was called. Don't trust natural flavor. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I think that's like hundreds or thousands of different things that it could be. It has caffeine. We'll talk about that. It has theanine, L-theanine. It has sucralose. So this is what I want to point out. Because it has sugar alcohols, and then that's all you see here, right? You see those sugars, you see 2 grams of sugar alcohols, but then they sneak sucralose in there. Sucralose is Splenda, so they're being pretty sneaky. They have a second sugar substitute in here. Then we have some more preservatives, we have some proteins, we have our B vitamins, and that's about it. So the label isn't crazy, but obviously they're using lots of artificial flavorings and sweeteners. So I would be very mindful. My other concern here though is the 200 milligrams of caffeine on top of the B vitamins, on top of everything else they're throwing in here. 200 milligrams of caffeine is 2 cups of coffee. If you're and I imagine you drink this a lot faster than 2 cups of coffee. It looks like it's something that you just kind of chug down before a workout. So I would just be really mindful. That's a lot of caffeine on top of, that's not even including like the B vitamins and stuff like that. So I would opt for something different if you need an energy boost that doesn't have so many processed ingredients. I would do something like a green tea, maybe a cold green tea. That would be a great energy boost, like maybe in the afternoon if you need something. There are definitely other pre-workout options, but a lot of times this is also placebo effect. A lot of people just get used to using this and they feel like they need it or their workout tanks. So I would try weaning off, like try doing a workout without this and see how you do. Try doing it every other day and see what happens. I would try to wean off. I definitely, with this kind of like caffeine, it could definitely be somewhat, I wouldn't say addictive, but you could start to feel like you need it. And so I would not recommend making this a regular staple in your diet just because that's a ton of caffeine. If you need some B vitamins, get a B complex. If you need some energy, drink some regular coffee or some green tea, and a well-balanced diet that has a lot of these nutrients that will give you energy, because that's basically all this is. And then we can eliminate all of those extra processed ingredients. So that's my review of Alani here. I think it was helpful to kind of break that down and see for yourself what all is included there. Okay. Next question was, let me see here. Does body fat percentage fluctuate as much as weight does day to day? No, it definitely does not. Weight's crazy. Weight absolutely fluctuates more. Body fat is going to move a lot slower, but as a result, be a lot more, a lot better representation of a change in body composition. And if we're burning fat, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. yes, we talk about weight loss, but ultimately we want to burn fat, right? We want to lose fat. We want to instead gain muscle and overall, lower that body weight altogether. So if you see fat percentage dropping, that is a great sign. That moves a lot more slowly. It's a lot more accurate representation of the progress you're making. So keep a track on that body weight percentage, or body fat percentage. That's why I recommend the scale that I do. I think I'm going to start making it just a requirement for the program. It's $25. I think it's absolutely necessary to have that scale so you're seeing this data, because weight is just so unpredictable that you need to see those other metrics of what's going on with body composition. And remember, your measurements are also going to give you an insight into changes in body composition and fat loss. So if you're doing your measurements, that's good. But if you have the scale, that's just another bolster or another piece of the puzzle too, to understand what's going on. So you see that fat percentage dropping, that is awesome. That is so great. That is one of the hardest things to budge. So keep going if you're moving in that direction. And then the last question was, when doing No Carb Left Alone, and someone asked what that was. That's, if you're newer, that's a module or a set of modules in the portal about blood sugar balance. Definitely need to go check that out if you haven't already. But the question was, how long do you have to pair your foods? Like, eat a carb now, can I eat I don't know, slice of turkey breast in 30 minutes, and does that count? So that's a good question. It's a little technical, but I will show you what's going on in your body. I'm going to share my screen again here. So this is what I'm going to show you here. So this is like a, probably someone who did like a glucose test. Maybe if you've ever experienced this when you're pregnant, they do an oral glucose tolerance test, and you just consume straight shot of glucose, and then they measure and see what happens to your body. So this is a chart showing what happens over time with your blood sugar, and it also compares high and low glycemic index. We'll talk about that. But I wanted to use this just to show you, you have about 15 minutes before it really starts taking off. You can see here, yeah, it's creeping up, but really about 15-minute mark, you can even see here, there's like a little, I don't remember what the word is, inflection. So that's when it really starts taking off. So you have about 0 to 15 minutes to pair that carb before that blood sugar starts spiking. Obviously, if you eat something later, it's still going to blunt the response. But to get to your technical question, you have about 15 minutes before the blood sugar really starts spiking. And then just to give you an understanding of what happens in your body, it's going to peak. Your blood sugar usually peaks around 45-ish, usually within an hour time frame. And then by 2 hours, we expect it to go down to just about where it was when it's starting. So if you ever check your blood sugar, those are usually the timestamps they're looking at. So if you're interested in learning more about your own blood sugar, like I've recommended before, get a glucometer. I actually just bought one recently, and check your blood sugar. They're $20, really interesting data that you can get from that. But you'll want to check, normally fasting in the morning, you'll check 1 hour after you eat, and then 2 hours after you eat, to see that it's gone down appropriately. So those are usually the 3 timestamps that we're looking at when it comes to checking blood sugar. So this I think is a really interesting graph as well, though, because you can see high and low GI. So GI stands for glycemic index, and I mentioned that before when I was talking about the sugar alcohols. So how fast your body how high your blood sugar goes in response to different foods. So certain foods spike blood sugar more than others, and they're classified as high and low glycemic index. Actually, what I'm going to do right now is actually show you just an example of the glycemic index. It was really popular a while ago. It's kind of fallen by the wayside, but I think it's still a great, because there is a lot of individuality with people's bodies. Like, for example, you'll see a lot of people with diabetes kind of tend to learn what their foods are that work for them. And it can be very individual. Like, some people will not spike up in response to rice, some people will. So that's why glycemic index has lost a little bit of credibility, just because we've realized there's a lot of individuality when it comes to blood sugar response. But I think it's still, just like for a reference point, a really helpful tool to understand. I'm trying to find a good picture to show what it generally looks like. It's not great. Let me see. Yeah, there's some that I like that. Okay, this is kind of what I was looking for. Okay, so we have low glycemic index, we have medium, and we have high. The high ones are not surprising. White bread, bagels, biscuits, granola. Nothing here is pretty shocking. But this is over 70, so they spike your blood sugar pretty quickly. It uses the reference range of how high does it spike in 1 hour, and they use this formula to calculate the glycemic index. Then we have medium. So these are interesting ones to keep in mind. So you're going to see these are mostly your whole grains, right? These have a little bit more fiber in them. That's what's putting them more in the medium category. And then we have low. And so these are the ones that you want to be consuming the most of. So you're going to see these are lots of chickpeas, lots of legumes, and starchy vegetables, things like that. So there's obviously a lot more in-depth lists than this. This just gives you a little snapshot, but it was just interesting to see when we go back. Oh, I think I got rid of it. But when we go back to that chart, you could see the difference in how those different foods spike. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely talk with your coach. It's definitely something that was more popular several years ago, but I think it's still valid in many ways, and just something to think about. And a lot of it's very intuitive, chips and Gatorade and white rice are on the high end, but then there's some surprising things like pumpkin. Like, who would think pumpkin would be really high? So it's interesting to look at the list and just see some of those more nuanced foods that aren't as obvious. Another thing I want to show you guys that I found was this crazy list of 42 factors that affect blood sugar. I did not know there were 42 different things. I knew a lot of these, but some of these were new to me as well. So I just wanted to remind you that even when we're talking about food and blood sugar pairing, that there is more to the picture. Pairing your carbs and being mindful of your carbs is one of the biggest factors, but there are so many other smaller things that can fluctuate blood sugar on a daily, hourly basis. If you ever get a continuous glucose monitor, you would see how things spike very, very surprisingly unrelated to food. So I just wanted to give you a little snapshot here. I'm not going to read you all of them, but obviously food is going to be a big one. The carb quantity, the carb type, like we just talked about, fat, protein, caffeine. I don't actually know what all the different arrows mean, but I'm guessing it means like it goes up or stays the same. Alcohol, blood sugar is going up. Why is that? Remember, when we are consuming alcohol, the liver's number one priority is removing alcohol from the system. So blood sugar management, which is part of the liver's job, is put on the back burner. Meal timing, dehydration, personal microbiome. Remember, that's what I was saying. There's so much individuality that's where the glycemic index falls short. Everybody's body just responds differently to foods. So we have to keep that in mind. Medications are a big one. The dose, the timing, interactions, niacin. Remember those B vitamins. Activity, absolutely. Type of exercise, time of day, have you been eating before or not? How intense is it? Sleep, absolutely. Too little sleep, too much stress, absolutely. These are huge. These are a little bit more specific to these someone who actually has diabetes, but allergies, and isn't that one interesting? Periods, puberty, celiac disease, smoking, all of these can increase or sometimes even decrease your blood sugar as well. These are ones, some of these were new to me actually. Environmental, the temperature, sunburn, that's interesting. I just was at the beach and I got burned, and I think it's just because your body's putting more resources to healing that burn. Burns are really like your body wants to heal those very quickly. They're very stressful for the body. Altitude, and even social factors here. So I just want to throw this in. I know it wasn't related to the question, but I was coming across it as I was looking for some charts, and I thought it was really interesting. So even though we talk so much about carb pairing, just realize it is a lot more complex and a lot more dynamic than just, did I eat a carb and a protein and a fat? So that is all of the questions. And just a reminder, if you want to dig more into blood sugar, I strongly recommend you getting a glucometer. and checking. I think it's extremely insightful data. And if you're really gung-ho, get a CGM and do a trial for a month and see what is going on. You would be shocked at how much is unrelated to your food. So I went really deep on each of those 3 questions. I only had 3, but I hope you guys took up something away. And next time, give me some more questions so I can keep diving in with you guys. But I really enjoy these Q&As, so keep the questions coming. Thanks, guys. Bye.